Welcome to episode number 2 in a 4-part series focused on how we learn to do things of an artistically creative nature and how we teach others to use the creative gifts that they have been given. We have been talking with Sydney West about just that. If you didn't catch the first video, let me catch you up. Sydney, most importantly for me, is our middle child. She is also a musician and a professor of commercial music at a university. And we are talking through Sydney's 5-point philosophy of teaching and how each point plays out in a practical way in developing creative skills, talents, and abilities. Hello again, Sydney.
Hello.
Well, thanks again for being here, Sydney. Now, if you want to know more about Sydney's background and to hear her thoughts on the first point of her philosophy concerning communication, check out the first episode. I'll pop a card and a link in the description for the playlist of videos in this series here on YouTube. And if you want to watch or listen on a different platform, well, you'll have to do a little search for it. So let's get back to it. So your second point concerns collaboration. Now, this one can be a bit of a sticky point. There are people who believe wholeheartedly in collaboration, and there are others who just don't easily do the collaboration thing. So what is it about collaboration that is so important for creative education and ultimately our creative endeavors?
Yeah, so I've seen the mindset that you're talking about of being against collaboration. I've seen the mindset of I can only do things when I'm collaborating with other people. And I've seen the mindset of very, very much like myself. I like to do things on my own. I like to do things with other people. But specifically as it relates to music education or arts educations especially, collaboration is the industry. I mean, whether you're doing visual arts, you're doing the film, right? Visual arts as in film or, photography, painting, you're doing your more traditional arts, whether you're doing performing arts, you're in theater, you're musical theater or traditional theater, you're in an opera, you're doing musical arts, you're a guitar player, or you're a composer, you're anything in between, you fill in the blanks. But in arts education, it's so important to include collaboration as a mandatory item. Like it doesn't have to be graded necessarily how you collaborate, but collaboration for the purpose of instruction, or really just thinking of it like a lab, right? In chemistry, you have lab, right? And you do these different experiments, you try things out, you see what works, what does not work. If something blows up, maybe it was supposed to, maybe it wasn't supposed to. But when it comes to collaboration, the biggest thing that I saw coming out of my degree, and really even while I was in both of my degrees, I was working as a composer, I was doing orchestrations, I was hired as a singer for some things. I did quite a few things while I was in my degrees, but what I was learning, not necessarily specifically from my classes, but what I was able to learn by being in the classroom with other people. And I really actually, in retrospect, wish I'd seen it more, but by being in the classroom with other people, by being able to use my peers as a sounding board for information, by being able to use my professors as a source of information and really a source of feedback as well. It grew me into a better creative, right? Not just communicating information like we were talking about in the last video or on our last point, but also being able to act it out, right? So communication would be the precursor to the actual collaborative act of doing something, right? So in my classroom, I have a class that I teach that introduces the idea of commercial music, really, from the perspective of producing music. And I really try to cover all of the aspects that commercial music can. So publishing and producing, songwriting, composing, if you want to be an audio engineer, if you want to be a producer, right? I try to cover all of it in this class and really walk students through this. But one of the trouble things that I often run into is that the main project for the class requires collaboration. It requires working with someone else. And the biggest pushback I get is that's inconvenient for me. That's inconvenient for me. It doesn't work for me. They can't fit it in their schedule. And while that's understandable to an extent, one of the most valuable things that you can do, especially in the musical arts, is really just run your ideas by somebody else or incorporate your ideas with someone else's ideas. In my master's degree, my thesis was on collaborative communication, and showing how healthy communication in collaborative efforts actually does improve the output of your product. What you actually are creating is not necessarily that it's the best it could be, but it is different. It improves impact. It improves meaning. The intentionality behind the way that the item that you're creating, for my example, it was a short film and I wrote music for it. One without communication, one with communication, with the actual director, the writer of the film. And, both pieces of music were musical. They were both intentionally written, but the intentionality or the line of thought that I used when writing the music was different between these two things. And then, I did this study and I had people watch both things. And really the finding was not that the first one without communication was bad or the second one with communication was better, right? Or anything along those lines. But what was found was that the emotional timeline meshed much better, right? Not only and they didn't even know the script. They didn't know the screenwriter. They didn't know me as a composer. All they knew was what they were seeing and how that connected with them on an emotional level. Now, when we're creating, whether it's in the arts or in any other area that we are creative, because we're creative in so many ways. I'm creative when I reorganize my living room to fit my flow better, or I'm cleaning my house and I decide not to leave my catch-all in my kitchen like I normally do. Like, that's creative in the sense that I might create a different catch-all in a different place for the next week. But we're creative in the way that we do our taxes and we manage our own finances, right? We're creative in all of these different ways. But when we operate with someone else, we see this in relationships. If you're married like I am, or you have a family like I have, or just in general, most of us do have some kind of connection in that way. In those relationships, that the collaboration that comes in relationships, that are modeled in healthy relationships that you have in marriages or friendships, right? Those collaborations that can, simply be, let's plan a game night and have a time of community that's intentional, right? Or I'm serving in my church and collaborating with the pastor of my church to create sound panels and create a better sound or a better presentation of sermons and our worship team on Sunday mornings, right? That collaboration between individuals, that it is by nature what we do. And I think that in the arts, there's kind of, and really it's especially in the arts, because, when we create, when we think about creating in music or in visual arts or, in physical artistic expression, we get caught up in the fact that it's supposed to be my expression. It's supposed to be an expression of me, right? An expression of what I'm doing. But our sense of self doesn't, we are ourself, right? We exist as ourselves, but everything that we do is in context of everyone else around us and everything that's going on around us, right? The way that we build up our own psyche, our own personality, however you want to describe it, right? Who we are to ourselves, that is based on everything that we've done, everything that we're going to do, everything we plan to do, things that people have said to us, the way that we've interacted with people. So whether or not you agree with collaboration in the arts, you're doing it all the time. right? You share that MP3, which why we're still using MP3s, I don't know, but you share that MP3 with your mom and ask her for her opinion on the song that you're writing. That's collaboration. You've just collaborated with your mom to get an opinion or an outside perspective, right? So when we walk into a collaborative endeavor, like I mentioned in our last point, really coming in with the perspective of I'm intentionally entering this collaboration open, right? Open to what could come out of these conversations. Even in this video, just hearing the back and forth between, the two of us, we can have different results than maybe we were even planning on, just based on communicating in a collaborative way, not in a I'm stuck in this one thought process, but opening our ears, right? Opening up our ears to listen and opening our minds to being able to accept and actually have action in a thought pattern that isn't native to us, right? That's something that is so hard to do. And I think collaboration opens the door. It opens the door to this. Now, whether you walk through the door or not and actually walk down the path of trying new things is totally up to you, but collaboration allows for expanded creativity. I like to talk about it like that with my students, expanding your creativity beyond the own boundaries of yourself, right? I think of it as, we are a little house, right? And we have our four walls, and that's who we are. But houses can be expanded. Houses can be modified. You can repaint your house. You can add new furniture. You can design something new to go in your home. But we also have a door. So when we open that door and we go out and we explore other people's perspectives, that's when we actually are able to grow and enhance our creativity, which really, to me, and I am a highly collaborative person. I like to collaborate with other people. And I, so much so that I, do film scoring, and I'm collaborating with other people, but then I spend hours and hours of time by myself, which is so much fun. I do actually love it, but the hours and hours by myself sometimes is like, wow, that's a lot of time with just me making music. So I do love collaboration. I do love talking to other people, but I think for any of you that have that mindset of collaboration just isn't for me, I would say the question that I would pose to you would be, how have you tried to collaborate? What form of collaboration have you tried? Because there's not just one type for every creative, right? And so I could throw that question back to you. What forms of collaboration do you see, and how do you see that working within your own creative platform?
Well, sure. So, like you said, there are many types of collaboration, and I've worked in maybe not the stereotypical creative environment. I have been a part of church staffs where I was involved in all kinds of production oriented things, and so I saw it from that point. But if I step back in time and look at my artistically creative collaboration, it's always been a struggle for me. I'm not an inherently collaborative person. I don't seek it out. I've always thought, I'm pretty good at a lot of things, so maybe I can just do everything. It's fine. I don't need anybody else to help. I can do it all on my own. And that played out when I was in college. I am the smartest guy in the room. At least I thought I was. I'm young and dumb. And I know better than these guys. And so, we have to do a collaborative thing, but I'm going to do most of the work. And that just was wrong. Both, it's just wrong. Because collaboration is, just like in our last point, communication is imperative. Collaboration is imperative too. And I've just not succeeded well at that. And that has created some opportunities to fail in ways that, failure is a part of all creative endeavors and in life. Failure is just part of what we are. in the capacity of the things we do, not what we are or who we are. We're not failures. I don't believe in that. I think we're people who fail at things, but that doesn't make us failures. Off the track a little bit, but for creative endeavors, collaboration has always been a bit of an issue. I don't want to fail, so I'm going to do it because somebody else can't do the thing, so I'm just going to do it on my own. And then I just don't do anything because I don't have the capacity to do everything. Even if I do have the capacity to do everything, it's different. So I'm that guy. I'm the opposite of you, Sydney. I'm that guy that just struggles to want to collaborate. But over the course of the last few years, I have been trying to collaborate more. In fact, this whole On Paths Less Taken thing, I intentionally set up with Jordan to collaborate with her on it. She's the producer. I actually make her write some of the episodes because I don't want the only voice that is heard is just mine. There's a reason why we're doing these podcast kind of things, like I did with Jordan, like I'm doing with you. I'm planning on doing one with your mom in the future, because I do want to have that more collaborative thing happen. And because collaboration allows other thoughts to propagate the environment of creativity that you're in, and other thoughts aren't bad. Now, one thing that as you were talking that struck me as an example. Now, I don't know if everybody will understand this kind of thought. You will, Sydney, because you grew up listening to a lot of the same things that I listened to because you had to. But when it comes to music, specifically jazz music, and again, this is a kind of a subject matter that not everybody knows about, but in the jazz world, there are bands, but there's also individuals that collaborate with other jazz bands, and when they combine, they do something different because there is in music, and it's the same in film and in writing novels. There's a style, a formula that your creative or musical or whatever input has affected the way you perceive whatever the creative thing is, whether it's music or writing or filmmaking or life, the way you perceive that thing and your output, your expression in that artistically creative thing is formed by those things that have been inputted. And so because mine is different than yours, they're different in such a way that when you combine two different things, it creates something that is different than both of the discrete inputs. If it's me and you collaborating, our outputs are the input to the creative thing that we're making. And so the creative inputs are different. So the creative output of that thing will be different. And that is where collaboration is a great thing. Now, it can be bad if you got creative outputs that are just don't have any weight of cohesion, then that can be a problem. But I think generally speaking, what happens when people, because here's a part of collaboration that I think is important for us to consider, is that when we collaborate, we have to let our egos take a back seat. And we have to be willing to mold a little bit of us into a little bit of whoever the collaborator is and their creative things. And those things have to be able to mesh at some level. When collaboration doesn't work, it's when two brick walls hit each other and it just breaks into pieces and there's nothing good that comes out of it because neither creative collaborator is willing to give anything. And so that is a problem. And I'll be honest, that has been me over the course of time. And so for me, with working in churches and doing creative projects and production of those projects, I had to learn that I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not the most talented guy in the room, and I have to be willing to allow those people that are those in whatever specific area, fill those gaps, do the thing, and then allow the thing that I do in support or in collaboration with directly to fill the gaps that I'm able to do. And so I think that imperative thing of collaboration does boil down to whether or not we are able to really communicate. Again, there's a reason why that was first, I'm sure, in your 5 points. Because if we can't communicate, we can't collaborate. And if we can't collaborate, then we're on our own. And to your point, if we keep that door to the proverbial creative house that we've built, if we keep that door closed, then we're only going to ever do the things that are possible within the confines of that place. Collaboration allows us to move outside of those walls.
Yeah. It also allows people to come in and see what you're doing and see your process. And I think that with collaboration, one of the biggest hesitations, especially with young people that I've worked with, has been that there's a vulnerability that enters. And I'm very young for a collegiate professor. Most of my colleagues are a good amount older than me. But I have a specialization in technology and software that does put me ahead in my area of these individuals that I work with, and they're ahead of me in other areas, right? And there's compatibility in that, and that's why it works, right? It works to have those partnerships. But what I've seen in my younger students is not necessarily an inability, but an unwillingness to be vulnerable. There's an embarrassment that comes from not doing something well. And some of my favorite students that I've worked with have actually been students that are like business majors or nursing majors, or they're criminal justice, and they come and they take one of my classes is offered as a substitute for a general education class on their degree programs. And so I'll have some students that aren't music majors that will come and they'll take my class. And I love having those students because they are open to trying something that they don't have a lot of background in most of the time. And the creative output that they have is so fun to interact with. And I have some of the most real conversations with people that are stepping outside of their area and trying something new. But then I interact with my music students, and there's this, I don't want to have to collaborate with someone because I'm not that good at this. And what if I fail using Pro Tools, which we've all been there. Like, don't worry about it. Pro Tools is hard to use when you first start. And that's one of the main software that I teach, right? And so I'm teaching them this software, and what if I fail? I don't know how to use Pro Tools. And I'm like, well, that's, my goal is to teach it to you so that you can collaborate using it. But one of the biggest things is that there is vulnerability in collaboration. And, it's not just a career benefit to collaborate, but it's also, in my life, I've seen it be a personal benefit to my personality or my character as an individual to be collaborative, because I'm open to critique on something that is so personal to me, right? We kind of identify ourselves with our creative output. And I think that that's why there's such a huge issue with a lot of creatives with collaboration, with doing collaboration, because it feels like you're almost forsaking yourself, right? Like kind of setting yourself aside and just saying, well, I'll do whatever somebody else wants to do. And it's not that. It's a meshing of two things together, right? Weaving those two thought patterns together to create something that could not be created with one thought pattern alone. And so there's a vulnerability or a that sense of accountability that we were actually talking about earlier, of just an accountability from somebody else to say, well, that's not exactly what we talked about doing, or I know this isn't what we talked about doing, but the creative juices are flowing, right? Those the ability to kind of spitball something and just kind of go with the flow. It introduces itself in collaboration. And I think that's something that's not seen from the outside a lot of times. You'll see it with artists and their producers sometimes, that, those artists will come out and they'll say, like, the collaboration with my producer has been one of the greatest things in my career. And I think that some people will view that as, well, that's just that artist and that producer specifically. But that artist is probably doing that with other artists. They're probably doing that with other songwriters. They're doing that with the orchestrators that maybe come in and orchestrate for them on their songs for their album productions. They're collaborating with music videographers. They're collaborating with the people that are in the sound booth, making them sound like they're going to sound, right? They are collaborating with all of these individuals, and you're just hearing about the most prominent collaboration in their career. And so I think, when we listen to interviews with our favorite band or our favorite, artists that we like, or, whatever it is that your creative area is, you're listening to somebody talk about it, more often than not, you will hear them talk about an inspiration person, and you'll hear them talk about somebody that they interface with, right? That they are weekly or regularly communicating with, that's their sounding board, right? Whether it's your mom, it's your, like, what do you think of this? Does it fit with what I've been doing? Does it fit with my vision, right? Or it's another person that's walking along with you. I think collaboration can take on a lot of different shapes and forms, but at the end of the day, it's that accountability person that you're comfortable being vulnerable with, or you're able to be uncomfortable being vulnerable with, to start out with. And that's what's so important in education, to really just throw students into that and almost force those interactions. Now, I do give students an out, because there are some students that just will not. But I do have a conversation every time I offer this out of, you can do it on your own, but I do have a conversation about what they're missing, right? What they're missing out on. And even that conversation is collaborative in a sense of me just enlightening them on the fact that their viewpoint is not the only viewpoint that exists. And sometimes it is helpful to create a shared viewpoint with someone else to really find your voice in your creative endeavors. So
that's good. So collaboration is a vital part of life and our creative endeavors. God created us to be a part of community, and in community, we have the opportunity to grow and thrive in ways that we cannot do on our own. As I already said, I personally have struggled to allow others to be a part of my creative education and my creative endeavors. It has taken time for me to embrace the core element of collaboration that I always struggle with: trust. Sydney hit on it. Not to say I do the collab thing well all of the time, because I don't. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. Trust takes time and openness on our part, and that can be an issue. So let us choose to trust, to be open. And when we have the opportunity, whether in education or creative endeavor, to collaborate with others, to take that step of faith and trust as we go, create, and be a blessing. You can support our channel by subscribing, hitting that bell icon to get notified when new content comes out, and liking our videos. If you'd like to consider supporting our team financially, there's a link in the video description with more details. Those things will help our channel for sure, but if you do nothing else, please spend some time in the comments of our videos encouraging one another to create, to help others create, and to help grow that creative nature within us all. Oh, and you can check out these videos too. Thanks. We'll see you again soon.